Okay, people, I am still using the first camera, right? I got the other ones. There's this one. You can see it. It works turned on, but it has no directions. So, and it has memory, 30 gigabytes in the actual camera itself, which I like, right? With the memory in the camera without having to rely on those little cards. And then the other one came in the mail, or a Purelator Express yesterday. So I got that. The only thing is no directions. He's going to look around, see if he can find them and send them to me in the mail. But I did find some online. And it's this one here, which is the most heaviest one out of them all, which would be reasonable because my first camera was a JVC, the old X Club one, right? The X, the original X camera. That's what I started off on YouTube's, and I paid over $1,000 for that camera, and boy, it was a good camera, and it was heavy, just like this one. Just like this one, people. This one isn't as high up as the one I had back in the day, but I can find the directions online for this. I haven't used it yet. And this one here needs a special adapter for the port to be able to plug into the computers, because the port that it requires in terms of the cord that I have doesn't fit into these ports on the computers anymore. It needs a different UBS port, right? Which I have one in my other computer in my other bedroom over there, right? That if I really wanted to, I could go get it, or I'll just buy another one. Okay, so anyway, I'm using the first one that I got when Tisha went and picked it up, right? I haven't used this one yet, and I haven't used this one yet, right? But what I'm going to do here in the next hour, and this is the reason why I'm doing this video, is I'm going to go look at a little house, people. And obviously I'm making inquiries to rent it, and that would be house number 2, right? I actually have an opportunity to see it, right? But I've already been informed that lots of people are interested in it. I have been looking on basically Facebook at this point at rentals that are coming up regularly. I've looked at like maybe 6 houses already through this system, right? Through this program. And I contact people. I tell them I work on a nonprofit. You know, I work towards housing displaced people that are in need of housing. You know, I have references. I'm working on program development. I'd like the opportunity to continue. I need the landlord to work with me so that if the troublemaker, the pirate moves in, you know, the landlord will help me to evict that particular person and not disrupt the whole house, right? To prevent a mutiny, right? You know? And I just keep getting no, people. I just keep getting no, which to me is like a form of discrimination. Like I'm being discriminated against, right? And these are like low-level housing units in terms of their old 1950s, 60 bungalows that are fairly run down. Even if you do some, you know, change the windows and put in more energy efficient windows and rip out the carpets and put in the freaking hardware floors, which, you know, maybe for the landlord it might be economical, but it's not good for living, general living, right? You know, I prefer carpets in the majority of rooms, not vinyl floors through each and every room, but besides that point, you know, oftentimes they have plumbing problems, they have electrical problems. I mean, there's all kinds of problems because the houses are old. You know, they've been through multiple families over the years for multiple reasons. And right now what's happening is every penny is being squeezed out of them because you're looking at a 4-bedroom rancher, which was more than likely a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom rancher that was converted into a 4-bedroom because they took a storage room and turned it into a so-called bedroom, right? With, you know, 1 or 2 bathrooms or one and a half bathrooms. And, you know, they're wanting like $2,500, $2,400. You know, you'd be lucky to find something for 21. And it's not because, and it's not, you know, it's not, some of these homeowners or property developers or whoever that are buying these homes at current market value put the minimal down payment down. So if it's an $800,000 home, because the inflation, the hyperinflation, the overinflation, I don't know what the heck you call it, in the neighborhood that's being propped up by unscrupulous realtors that are flipping properties 2 or 3 or 4 times a year in bulk under an assembly application so that they can overinflate the housing market that pushes everybody into risk of losing their homes. This is what's happening, people. So, you know, and you buy a house for $800,000 when really it should be $400,000, you know, $375,000, maybe $425,000, $450,000 max, right? But you're paying $805,000 for this piece of property, basically, because the house itself is less than $100,000 in worth of net assets, right? Then what happens is, you know, people that can afford it put the $100,000 down and then bring in that mortgage that is extremely high to compensate for that $805,000, right? Where the tenant, if it becomes a rental, which a lot of these situations are, they have to pay that added cost as it increases yearly, even though that property is being slated for demolition because it's already designated to house a monster home, regardless of who's building it. It could be the Chinese are building it. It could be the Punjabi community that's building it. It could be just the local developer from freaking wherever is developing it. The point is it's slated to be bulldozed down and replaced with something else that's not going to house anybody in the local area, okay? The chances are people are going to have to come from a different country that are like within a certain income bracket just to fill up that house. So, you know, it's a form of a genocide that's going on here. So as I'm putting in these, you know, I'd like to rent your house, you know, I'm willing to partner up with an organization that works with people every day. They're in desperate need to house people themselves. They have the social workers, they have the staff, they have the volunteer. They just don't have the housing. So if I get the housing, I'm going to wander over there and I'm going to say, okay, I have a house. This is who I'd like to see maybe move in. But, you know, we still have a little bit of available space. Anybody that you can recommend so that we can keep the pirates. I'm not even going to call them the riffraff people, because these people that are out in these situations that are homeless and in a rut, you know, they're like anybody else. They're just caught up in that rut and they don't know how to break away from the rut, right? So, but I'm not in the position to I don't know. I don't want to say leader, right? People don't take me serious. That's the thing, right? They don't think I'm a very good leader, which I'm not. I'm not trying to be, right? But if, you know, you move into one of my houses, because it's still my house, I got the key, right? And, you know, you want to turn it into a mutiny and turn everybody into your, you know, pirate buddies, right? Thinking that you're, you know, I don't know what you're thinking. At the end of the day, you're right back where you're at. I don't want those same people at this point, or same kind of people at this point, to move in and take it over and give me a bad reputation with house number 2. Obviously, anybody that's moving in has to be as quiet as a church mouse. And here's some basic rules. You either follow them or I'm coming back with the landlord and you're getting your ass booted out, because the other 6 people that live in that house depend on that house, even though it's slated for demolition in 1 to 2 years. The house that I'm looking at right now, at best, the landlord or the homeowner with his partners said that at best he could probably stretch it out for 2 years. So what is that telling me? It's telling me that it's slated for demolition. And I'm being discriminated against that for the simple fact is that I'm trying to house people in need of housing that have medical issues, that have psychological issues, that have the least of anything on this planet, right? So therefore they have no real wealth in terms of assets to determine their, self-worth, right? I'm optimistic for the simple fact that he knows I'm coming. And I'll hand him over my references. And if he's not going to rent me this house, I'm going to ask him to put his feelers out for another house and learn to trust to work with me so that the board directors that I work with, when we talk about things, can build on a bigger and better plan to deal with the social issues that are out in our community. Because as it is right now, people, my daughter, Sierra, and I'm going to end it on this note, because obviously she's a catalyst to keep me trying, right? I had to do a wellness, I think I mentioned it before, but anyway, I had to call the cops, right? And ask them to do a wellness check on her. Because a week and a half ago or whatever it was, she came to the house, she was swollen. I did the little video, she took off, whatever. She came back, she was like 10 times, well, not 10 times more swollen, but maybe 2 or 3 times more swollen. And not only was her face swollen, but her whole body was swollen. Long story short, the cops caught up with her and put her, took her to the hospital. And I've been informed that by her, right, that yes, they took, because when she came and I said, oh, did the cops find you? Yes, they took me to the hospital already. Okay. So anyway, she told me that when she was in the hospital, she had to have a blood transfusion with 3 big bags, or no, I don't know if it was a transfusion or if they were just putting the blood into her system, because she had no white blood cell count and she was like a walking zombie in terms of they didn't understand how she could be alive because her blood had completely depleted. So they ended up putting in 3 big bags of blood into her system just to bring her back up. And so by the time she showed up, she was in the hospital, and then after the hospital, for whatever reason, because she's on that system, they took her to jail, and then she slept, but this was after she had her blood transfusion or blood put into her body. I'm not sure which one. And then they released her, and she beelined straight here, and by that point she was looking gaunt, right? You could really see that the swelling had gone down, but she was gaunt. She didn't look well, and like, she's dying, people. She's dying. She needs housing, and they're not. And and I'm talking to these people, and they're all saying the same things. There's just not enough housing. It's not that they don't want them in housing as an individual, like the cop one, because my daughter came yesterday with a cop, right? And I said, so how come nobody phoned me to tell me that you guys found her? Why did she have to come home telling me that she had been in the hospital, got all that blood, and then went to jail, and then came home and told me? There should be a file there saying that you guys were supposed to be doing a wellness check. Isn't there any way that you can help me to get her housing? I'm asking of one individual cop. A lady that kind of looked like that Hindu lady that gave me that big-ass grinder for $25. I kind of felt this warm, fuzzy feeling with her, as an individual, because she has to work with these people. And this is what I hear too. There's so many like Sierra out there. Sierra's not alone. The system itself with the workers is overwhelmed. So when I approach these little houses or whatever I'm looking at, trying to house anywhere from 6 to at max 9 people, depending on the time of year, if it's the middle of fucking winter, it's hard to send people away. It really, really is, when they've got no place to go and it's freaking 10 below, right? So, but you don't want those pirates in there, because if you get the pirate, then it becomes a mutiny. So as soon as I say that to a homeowner, I need you to work with me. If I come to you with the information that so-and-so is causing trouble, kick his ass out, because there was an agreement before he moved in, right? 24-hour notice, 5-day notice, 10-day notice, depending on the severity of what the bullshit, because it's bullshit, a lot of it, right? But because there's a rumorville out there with them, like, oh, you don't want to rent this, and it's like becomes a little network with these homeowners, right? Because many of them out here are not even homeowners, people. They're property developers. They buy the houses specifically to tear them down within an X amount of time. Right? So, and here's another form of discrimination coming into British Columbia, Canada, with all these immigrants, regardless from where they come from, coming in under student visas, working visas, to fill in that gap that the provincial government, and I would even say the federal government, fails to provide to the Canadian-born people in terms of, like, Shemaine wanted to go to school to be a nurse. There should have been more available funding to support her initiatives in terms of college and all that other crap, right, versus relying on a exchange student coming in from China to pay and to study here to prop up the college system, because now Shemaine's dead. And not only that, even if she would have completed the course and became a nurse, the competition between the immigrant workers coming in from Philippines and Fiji and all these other places from everywhere under the sun, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Britain, everybody's swarming here because the government somehow has cut some kind of deal with these working visas that they're taking the jobs of the people that are born in this country, the young people coming up that could be educated to do the jobs. These immigrant workers are coming in with a bad attitude and with an agenda to have you die so that they can buy your house after they become landed immigrants, because they're not providing quality health care within the healthcare system, people. Because if they were, I would be telling you that through my videos, and I'm telling you it is not. It is not that way, right? It was not that way for Uncle John. And even though it was basically white people that were hovering around Shemaine's dead body at Fraser Health Authority, there was a few in the background lurking, right? Because it's a freaking network in terms of illegal organ harvesting and embalming bodies that they shouldn't be embalmed and all this other fucking crap that goes on in British Columbia, Canada. Because it's not just in Surrey. So, they're discriminating they're not renting to the people that are in need of housing in their immediate community. They're renting these houses to people that are coming in from different countries. They just make it look like they're not discriminating by allowing you to come see it, but they'll never rent it to you. But I have to give this person that I'm going to go see in the next 30 minutes the credit for telling me I can't show up after I provided a link to the nonprofit with the board directors' names on there, right, to show him that I'm serious. I'm not just coming in off the fucking street here, right? I don't want my daughter to die on the streets. I've already lost one daughter, right? Sierra has died 1,000 deaths, people. 1,000. How can a person die 1,000 deaths? But she basically has. She is in need of housing. Right? I can build in a support system. It's already there. It's almost there. They just need the housing, right? In order to follow up with Sierra to help her through her transitions. So, anyway, I'll be back.
Hey there, people. So look what I found. I found a hummingbird. Do you see it? It was so beautiful. Hold on. The camera's just fuzzy out. Oh, sun is not helping. Okay, people. Oh, come on. The ground is pink.
Okay, people, I'm using the old camera here because the other one's running out of energy and I'm not familiar with on how to recharge it and all that stuff. Anyway, it's got some beautiful trees out here, but as you can see, a little backyard with a wishing well in it. Very nice, unusual tree. Somehow it did something to itself. 5 prongs, do you see that? A little shed with a bunch of blackberries on top. Hold on. Okay, I'm outside wondering if I got jolted. Look at that. That's a big tree they cut down here at one point in the past. This is not a very big house, people, for $2,100 a month. It's almost 1 o'clock. I was told that they were going to be here at 1. I don't see nobody. He said lots of people were looking at it, apparently. All right. I don't know what all this crap is. Something digging. Maybe they did repairs. They had piping problems, I told you. All right. Another tree cut down. And another tree. Alright. Probably part of the problem was the trees, but the house itself, in square footage, people, is not big. And this is supposed to be a 4-bedroom. Everything's all boarded up. I'm walking around. Lights on. But do you see anybody showing up for a viewing? I don't. I think he jilted me. Because what's happening here is, as these homeowners, which a lot of them are just property developers, this is what they look for, right? Because they can, it's a big corner lot, more money, and look how much room is to build a monster home. That's what it's all about, people. It's already scheduled for it. So it's just a matter of getting every penny that you can out of that place. Do y'all see how small that is? That's an old war after, right? The war. That government built a whole bunch of these things, allowed those things to be built as the veterans were coming back and whatnot and whatnot. That's $2,100 a month, people. And I'm standing out here by myself. Those trees will eventually be cut down, right? And as these property dudes and their partners buy this stuff up in droves, right? They're, what was I gonna say? Discriminating against you. Because they know who you are. They come into contact with you enough times because you come into contact with them, with their partners as in group, 7, 8, 9, 10 at one time, investing. So, each one throws in 10 grand, and they can put $100,000 down on that, and then soak out every penny, every little penny available. I just want to show you a comparison house here, in terms of what will be built there. Do you see how big this thing is? That thing is huge. Well, that's what's going to end up here. And this one will be torn down too, eventually. It's throughout all of Surrey. I'm going to take you into some areas where you're going to see how they're wiping out whole block and building house after house after house that people like me, and there's a lot of us people, can never afford to live unless we want to be in the bottom, in the corner somewhere, paying out of our noses where we don't have no money for anything else, right? So I'm just going to hang out here for a bit longer because it looks like I got jilted. Okay, I'm in my son's car here, sitting here waiting. And I'm really trying hard not to get mad. Because it's getting close to 1 o'clock, and if other people are coming, because this fella said lots of people are showing an interest. We're doing a showing on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Today is Saturday, and it's almost 1 o'clock. I don't see lots of people driving up for a showing. So, they might come in one big rush, right? All of a sudden, boom, everybody's here. But, if people are, needing housing, chances are they're going to show up 10, 15 minutes sooner, right? I'll sit here for another 15 minutes, But, I'm looking around the neighborhood here at these homes across the street. And I'm already feeling sorry for the people that are moving into this place, regardless of who they are. Chances of it being a poor family in terms of, a family on social assistance with children, coming in at $2,100 a month in rent just alone for this square footage, with the added burden of knowing that you're going to have to leave in 1 to 2 years, at best 2 years. You know, there's no sense of quality of living there for the family people. You know, especially if they're on low income, whether they're low working parents or low income parents on social assistance. This is not affordable. Maybe for the neighborhood with the big houses. And, you know, we have to ask ourselves, how is it all these houses are popping up? Oh, here comes the car. Maybe this is the owner. Maybe, oh, he's slowing down, people. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get house number 2. Oh, yeah, just hold on. Is he parking? Yeah, he's parking. Hold on. Okay, people. So now we're at the back at the little house here, house number 1. As you can see, it's not so little anymore, right? Do you see how big that house is, people? Like, that thing is huge. It takes up almost the whole lot. Literally, it takes up the whole lot. And then if you notice over here, it's still an empty field. So they cut down those walnut trees last year when? In July, before they were fully mature in terms of with their nuts. And it's been sitting freaking empty ever since. But what they're doing is they're selling their units. And they're making sure that they have so much sold before they start building, right? So in the meantime, this is not helping the housing crises, people. Just hold on a minute. Just one more look. Goes all the way back. Okay, people. So I'm still using the first camera, right? The other 2, I have to fool around with them, right? But because the battery was low on this one when I left the house to go see that other house, I brought this one. So I actually recorded when I was out and about on this one. And now I'm finishing the video with this one. I almost want to put this first. I might put this little clip first and then everything else after it. Because the subject that I'm trying to address here is, it's humongous. It's actually $7 billion worth in the year of 2018 of money being laundered, people, through the housing market. That is what a study has brought to the surface in terms of the amount of money that is being laundered, which means it's dirty money, it's illegal money, it's blood money, it's money coming in from illegal organ harvesting, it's money coming in from fentanyl sales that's killing people so that they can harvest organs, whether legally or illegally, right? Okay? We're talking $7 billion just for the year 2018. And we've had this problem since pretty much for a long time. They started, you know, making mention of it in 2016, but it started long before then under the BC Liberal government through their backroom deals with China and those businessmen and politicians from that country and other countries as well. So anyway, it's a very complicated issue because nobody wants to hear another person's truth. If you notice, I said another person's because what my truth is isn't necessarily truth to somebody else. But it doesn't mean that I'm not telling the truth or that I'm wrong, because it really depends on what side of the fence you're on. You're either doing the massacring or you're the one being massacred. I'm on the side of the fence of the one being massacred in terms of the caste system that we have in the province of British Columbia, Canada, that's being fueled in part by the public union sector and the various ethnic groups that are moving in en masse into the province and then setting themselves up over here, setting themselves up over here setting themselves up over here. And all you have to do, people, is think about a freaking lake, okay? In the middle is a big-ass lake. And over here, you've got the birds that are all white. Over here, you've got the birds that are all brown. Over here, you've got the birds that are all green. Over here, you got the birds that are all gray. And every now and then, the birds fly and they cross each other. But when it comes time to go home and roost, chickens don't roost with seagulls. Seagulls don't roost with crows, and so on and so on. Well, it's the same way with people. And this is why I told the board director back just a while ago that everybody's a racist. Like when I come into so many racist people who don't even realize that they're racist or bigots, or that they're discriminating, or that they hold prejudices against other ethnic groups for whatever reason, or classes of people, keyword, classes. Because I'm out there advocating to house people in need of housing, who were born in this country, who were introduced to situations at a young age that corrupted their lives so that somebody else could make a profit. And now they're out on the streets dying. Literally dying. And I speak from my truth, from my experience, as I watch my oldest daughter die 1,000 deaths. And I wait every day to get the final call, I guess you can say. And I tell people and they simply say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, I know you are sorry to hear it, but at the end of the day, because it's not in your house, it's not affecting you directly, and subconsciously, deep down inside, you probably really don't give a shit, because it's just one less problem that you have to worry about, so that you can go out and acquire more for yourself. Right? That's just the way people are. Doesn't matter what ethnic group they come from. Right? It's just people, in every book they talk about greed. People are infested with greed. Well, the housing market is $7 billion worth of freaking greed, people. That's like murdering off my family. One here, people stealing money from Uncle John so they could be with the Joneses. It's like Schmay's body being pillaged by the Fraser Health Authority and their staff, right? It's just ongoing. So anyway, I spoke with that man. He did show up. You'll see that if you haven't seen it already, because I'm thinking to put this first, because it's disturbing, right? Because I can clearly see what the hell is going on, because I've been dealing with it for quite a long time now, right? I'm on the other end over there, not over there, right? I don't hold all the cards. I'm the one with with nothing. So when you have nothing, it's very hard to gain anything in terms of advancement, right? So I basically went inside, told him about the nonprofit, expressed to him that, if he was to give me a chance to house people in need, including my daughter, right, that one, I'd be working with other groups trying to invite them to come in and work with the people that are living there. But if for some reason, a pirate should move in, a troublemaker should move in, I need the landlord to help me to evict that person. Well, long story short, he has had problems in the past evicting tenants, and, it's a big rigmarole, and, he obviously doesn't want any trouble. And I'm like, well, I don't want trouble either. But, trouble comes to my doorstep every time my daughter comes to the house. Doesn't matter what the weather is. It could be 40 below weather out there. It could be boiling hot. It could be pouring rain. You get the picture, right? And she's sick and has no place to go, and the hospital released her, or she just got out of jail, because there's nowhere for her to go, people. All I hear is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. When in fact, all I know is that my daughter is being pimped out to the last minute, basically, by the so-called professionals in the community that are paid to serve and protect, and they're not serving and they're not protecting her. And if they're serving her, it's by taking her to jail, letting her lay there for how many days, and then releasing her out into the streets, or taking her to the hospital, giving her 3 big bags of blood, and then sending her on her merry way, knowing that she has no place to go. And there's lots of Sierras out there. And I told that, not to that extent, to that man, But I told him that there's a lot of discrimination going on with, a certain sector of the population, and that, it's not right. It's not right. And that, it's not like, I asked him, have you ever worked with, like, when you rent out and you have trouble with tenants, was there anyone in there to help you to manage those tenants? And he said, no. And I said, well, that's what I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to build in that kind of a program where the landlord is not having to face those issues by himself. In addition to, I want to continue on program development in regards to writing the fundraiser and all this other crap, right? And blah, blah, blah. And then, I basically told him that, because he goes, well, what about other families? Other families need housing too. And I'm like, yeah, lots of people need housing. But first of all, anyone on social assistance with 2 or 3 kids, there's no way they're going to be able to afford $2,100 a month just for rent alone, not including the gas, hydro, and a basic freaking cable line so that you can have a telephone or something like that, right? I couldn't even afford it by myself with Amari and Andre. It would be impossible. All my money would be going just for that, knowing that I'd be kicked out in a year to 2 years because they were planning on building a monster home. Right? So I don't know what kind family in need that he needs or he's looking for, because they got to have a lot of money in order to be able to afford $2,100 for that small, teeny weeny little space. So, kind of, whatever. I told him to call the board director, call the landlord to the other little house, try to explain my position, right, in terms of, like, facing discrimination, that type of thing, right? Whether you realize it or not, it's out there. It's a subconscious thing. That's what I told him, is a subconscious thing, because I'm not discriminating. I'm not, being racist or whatever. It didn't say racist, discriminating, right? I said, well, I don't know. Like, it seems to me that maybe you might be, though, because, you're not acknowledging what I'm kind of saying, right? In terms of, like, these people need housing. They need housing. No ands, ifs, or ors about it, right? And it's not well, other people need housing too. Well, only certain kinds of other people need housing that can afford that kind of housing, right? And where do they come from? Because they're sure in the hell not coming from around here, and that's the point. Right? They're not coming from around here. So, okay, whatever. I can see, he doesn't really want to get too much into the debate of things. I enlighten him, in my opinion, at least in a small way, if anything, because I don't expect to get the house, people. I don't. Because I feel like I'm being discriminated against. I do. He may not think he is for his own reasons, and those reasons, I'm sure many of them are valid. He doesn't want trouble. I can respect that. But then at the same time, I don't like my daughter being pimped out on the streets because of social negligence. I don't care if it comes from the provincial government. I don't care if it comes from the public union sector. I don't care if it comes from the people moving into my country, somehow thinking that they're so much better than everybody else around here because they're of one, either their religion, or 2, because they have more money, or 3, because they've got more friends that look like them over there at that part of the fucking lake. It doesn't matter, right? The point is people are dying out here, and they're purposely being murdered via off through fentanyl. Well, the cops aren't doing anything about it because there's backroom deals going on around it, as $7 billion is being funneled through the housing market that people can't access. So just as I'm coming out, who's walking up the walkway? 2 brown guys that look like him. And I said, that's it. Game over. I turned around to that property owner. I said, there. So much for you thinking about it. You were just sugarcoating it over, telling me you were going to think about it. And maybe you were going to think about it, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't have given me that opportunity. So, in light of what's walking up, but it gets funky. It gets funky, people. In light of who's walking up, looks like you, talks like you, right? Do you honestly think they're going to rent to me with sick people that have been socially abused for years? Because the people that are socially abusing them don't want them to be on this planet and have a life, basically. And while they're here, they want to pimp them out by any means necessary for any and every last penny that they can get out of them before they have an early death. Oh, he goes, oh. And then he got like, because, you know, I was making him think, people. I was making him think. I was bringing things to his attention that maybe he's never thought about in a conscious way, right? And he didn't like it. He didn't like it because there's truth to what I'm saying. When it's on that side of the fence, or ball field, or hockey rink, or whatever you want to call it, right? And then, you know, those two guys were standing there. I don't know. And then across the street, a little over there, there's this woman. I swear, I think she was Muslim. She did not look like she was Punjabi in terms of dress. And she's like, right? And they're looking, and I'm like, you know, he's trying to defend himself. I'm not discriminating, and, you know, and I said, well, look at these guys. I said, look at you. I said, look at you and look at them. Who do you think you're going to rent to? Me? I don't think so. Because that's a family in need. Those two guys are a family in need. Don't deny them their happiness. Don't deny them their peace and liberty. They're entitled to the Canadian dream, just like everybody else. It's only fair. And I'm not being sarcastic, people. Right? Because I told him, I already know what I am up against, because you are not the first landlord that I have approached in many situations over the last, well, since the little house been tore down. Probably 10 times I've asked to rent a house, people. 10 times since the little house was tore down. And I keep getting turned away because nobody wants to have any sense of social responsibility for the shit that they bring to this country or create in this country, whether they were born in it or not. They just want the problem to go away. And then when it's staring them up in the face, all they have to say to you is, oh, I'm sorry your daughter's dying. Okay. Next. Well, the next ones walked in, and they looked exactly like him, and I think they spoke the same language. Although I don't think they were Punjabi. Honestly, I think they were Muslim. Because the woman looked like she was dressed as a Muslim. And then we're talking. He's insulted. Now he's telling me he's for sure not going to rent it to me. And I'm like, well, you just need an excuse not to rent it. That was your excuse. Because I brought something to your attention that made you feel uncomfortable, that made you stop and think, that made you to open your eyes of what's around you, right? You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Right now, I don't see no fucking solutions. I just see a whole lot of fucking problems, right? $7 billion worth. How do we know that little house isn't being funneled with dirty fucking money from the death of Shimei? Or that young man that just recently died by swallowing all that dope, right? Because he didn't want his friends to get caught selling it. He was just the fall guy, right? I'm sure some of that money trickled into that little house. And if not that little house, there's a whole lot of little houses out there like that. This is the stuff that I'm bringing to the attention of people, and they don't like it. So that was his excuse, saying, well, I don't think I'm going to do anything for you now, because I said, well, if you're not going to rent me the house, maybe you can keep an eye open and help me get another one another day. Or when the time comes for the fundraiser, maybe you can contribute $50. Well, we'll see. And I'm like, okay, don't worry. Like, you know, don't worry. I didn't expect to get the house because I know what I'm up against. I've been up against it enough times to fucking know already what I'm dealing with. And a lot of it is, and I don't like to say it, but it's the truth. It is discrimination that borderlines, and if not, it is on fucking, all has to do with racism, people. There's a difference between discrimination and racism. So next thing you know, that old woman, little woman, whatever she was, well, she was a little old woman. She wasn't that old, but she was old enough and she was little, right? She's now standing with the two men. I'm standing there with the landlord, the owner of the house. And they're going, that's Mom. So how the heck? They drive up. Now this is what I mean by being these guys being shady in terms of, okay, this guy, he drives up from over there, whatever. I go see the house, we're leaving. Now there's another car out there with these two men that are from Siberia or someplace like that are Muslims. That's what I'm thinking. Because I don't even know if they're Punjabi. I didn't ask the man, the owner of the property, if he was Punjabi. I mean, they could have been Punjabi. But, or Iranian or Siberian, from Syria or someplace like that. Because I do tend to think they're Muslim, right? And they're standing there, but they drive up with their car, making it look like they came from somewhere else. But yet there's this woman across the street coming in from another house, right across the street. Next thing you know, she's standing with us, and they're calling her Mom. So how do we know that that house isn't bought from the people across the street that live in that monster house that are pre-screening the tenants to make sure that they get the perfect tenant in there? I was going to say their kind, but at least the perfect tenant. Right? Because that woman came out of nowhere except for that other big monster house from across the street. And if those were her sons that drove up in a car, doesn't that sound kind of fucking fishy to you? Sounds fishy to me. If they're keeping it in the family, well, then they didn't need to put an ad out to try and attract more people to look at the house. Right? They obviously knew what they were doing. They didn't drop that woman across the street and made her stand there and wait. She came out of that house. Which tells me that they probably own it. They probably own it. And so, I don't know. I'm going to keep trying, people, but it's like beating your head up against the wall. The chances of me getting another house in this freaking district, never mind the province, is very, very slim. Not unless I can come up and hand cold cash to these landlords for like 6 months rent in advance so that they have a sense of security. And that's what I told them. That's what the purpose of the fundraiser will be, is so that people like me that work with this foundation can come and hand you 6 months rent in advance so that you don't have to get all stressed out and worry about the issues that I myself don't want to deal with. But then on the other hand, it's my daughter that's out on the streets being abused day after day after day on multiple levels by multiple people as she has 1,000 deaths at a time. Okay, like, you don't understand. And it's just a matter of time, people, before I turn on this camera and say my daughter is dead. And I'll get, oh, but in the back of their mind, they're thinking good riddance. And genocide in Canada. This is genocide in Canada, $7 billion worth.